How about now? It's clearly not my day. Maybe I should just go back to bed. What do you reckon? Clearly. Okay. Well, anyway, the trials and tribulations that I had, I tried to make a scenario that had all of the challenges. And it exploded. And it exploded to the point that nothing's working now. Alright then. Let's get our reverser all the way forward. I might have to use keyboard for this. Let's just do that actually. That woke people up. Let's see if it'll move in the snow. Oops, building. Tree. Oh, come on. There's got to be somewhere I can look at it. There we go. Might need a little bit more just to make it move. I'm going to run a bit of a fine balance here between going for a total slip and slide. Look at that massive traction. I've got none. Clipped on the lamp directly in front of the boiler pressure gauge. This one. Ah, nice. Hello, Michael. I'll give it a tiny bit. No, it is actually moving, I think. I don't want to give it more regulator, because if I give it more regulator, it's just going to slide. Because I kind of think it is starting to move. I might even bring the reverser back a little. Let me put this horrible HUD on so I can see a bit more what I'm doing. Just so it's putting a little bit less power down. Oh, do we dare try a little bit more? Do we dare? I don't want to mess with the settings on traction because I want to get it moving. I could cheat. We let Robot Guy go for it. That would be funny. Alright, I'll give it a tiny bit more. Don't slip, don't slip, don't slip, don't slip, don't slip. Ooh, it's moving. It is moving. Why is that zoomed in so ridiculously close? I'm just going to let this sit. Just going to let this sit. So I've just turned it down a little for me so I don't yell at you. Is that one sand? No, stack hood. Sand, there we go. Let's have a bit of more sand. I think it's happy now anyway. It's moving. Let's give it a little bit more. Because it's not as though we're climbing a gradient now. Sorry it's so dark. I didn't actually think this would be quite this dark. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. The task was unsuccessful. That's fine. I don't care. It's my scenario. And I'm doing a whimsical one because, yes, this thing never pulled Amtrak's Empire Builder and it never pulled it with those carriages. But today it's going to. And admittedly, I nicked one of, I think it's High Iron's. High Iron or Milepost? No, it's a Milepost simulation. And I nicked one of his scenarios. Alright, let's go for 100% throttle and see if we get away with it. Because I did notice the automatic driver likes driving it at 100% throttle. Finally going okay. Bring the cutoff back a little more. Because that was one other thing I noticed that the automatic driver does, is it drives entirely on the reverser. Hey Smokebox, you can answer one question. Well, this one, if I go downhill, can I use the reverser to slow it down by putting it into reverse? Some locomotives you can do that, and some that you can't. I don't know if the Challenge is one that allows it. Why does it sound like I've got some brakes on? No, wrong one. Damn it. That's not the valve I wanted. There are so many valves. That's the one I want. I did have the locomotive brake on. What a wanker. And I think this one's in running. Yep, now I've overcharged it. Now, that just means we haven't got any brakes, but that's fine. We're going uphill. Don't worry about it. No brakes is fine. Do you bail off with the independent brake lever on this one? I'm not too fussed about the brakes because I'm not going to need them. We're going uphill. Oh, I do have some wheel slide. You're right. Wish I had the rail driver. That'd make life so much easier. But just to be really clear, that's not the locomotive's fault that rail driver's not working. That looks happy again now. There we go. There we go. It's only a short tunnel, only gets a short whistle. Hold the appendant all the way to the left to barrel off. Let's just jump back in there. Looks like I'm good on the brakes at the moment. But it doesn't worry me too much that we did overcharge. Now I've got the automatic fireman, he's going. So it's not the game's automatic fireman, it's the loco's automatic fireman. So we should see him twiddling knobs and valves and having fun over there. In fact, if we go outside, we should even see him. I can't go outside because I'm in a tunnel. Alright, now I should be able to go outside. No? Hey! There's our little crew working away. Got a headlight on? Or do you want to see the beam itself? H. There we go. Oops, no, killed it. Didn't I put that one on? No, he's on. At least the head tracker's working, so I can look around. That's kind of cool. When it lightens up a bit, I'll show a bit more of the outside, because it didn't actually occur to me this would be quite this dark, but that's okay. Looks pretty good with the beam now. We've got a road crossing coming up. No, the road just ends. That's fine then. I do really like the whistle. It's cool. Hello, David. How are you? Yeah, track IR's fun. When it's happy. What's the minimum reverser you should use for this one Smokebox? come out of our tunnel soon. We'll be able to see more. We're almost out. Let's stick my head out. Hello, Chicago. How are you? It's starting to lighten up, so we'll see some details of this magnificent machine shortly. Oh, the ones at the back here. That's cool. I've got the scripted fireman that belongs to the locomotive running at the moment, David. I'm not game to try and fire it myself at the moment. So between 30 and 35. Okay, let's make that happen then. If that's where it likes to be. Sounds quite different there, doesn't it? And it's picking up speed, so yeah, good. Wrong button there. Bring the regulator down a little, because I am at speed. But I don't want to drop it back to 0, because I want to keep my cylinders nice and warm. And control that. There we go. Red and green. It's like a Christmas tree. It's actually one of those interesting things. I know quite a few American trains do have red and green lamps, but ours, we only display red lamps and we only display them backwards. We only have white lights forwards. I was quite fascinated with this thing, Smokebox, the foam meter. I had to do a bit of research into what that's for. And yeah, an amazingly large boiler that needs that to happen. I might want to make it do some work, huh? I don't actually have the big boy, David. I love the look of it, but I've never gotten off my arse and acquired it. I've got the old horrible one, but I don't have Smokebox's really cool one. The old one's pretty bad. You're not being bullied, Chicago. Who's bullying you? Oh, you had an argument with your parents. I was just reading back up the chat there. You know, that's kind of normal, mate. Ask my kids. We have discussions occasionally. But mostly they do the right thing. Mostly they're cool. Mostly they help out. Mostly they're really good. They both contribute to the house financially, which is cool. We all own this. Yeah, I like the big light the tender's got for shunting around. I've done a little bit of free roam, just mucking around, moving cars around and playing with the train. I have to say, it's a good one to shunt with. It's pretty responsive. Both power and brakes. For such a big machine, it gets up and going and it stops relatively quickly when it's light engine and you're just moving things around. I think I did actually pick the HD version of it this time, Smokebox, too. Probably wouldn't let you in anyway, Chicago. Yeah, David, it would look good in TSW, but I'm not quite sure TSW is quite ready for it. I don't know if you've run the one and only double-headed steam scenario in TSW, but it struggles a little bit with that. And this thing is essentially 2 steam locomotives, so it's a pretty big drain on the game. Looks like we're coming out into some light. Are we? Got a bridge, though. Should have whistled for the bridge. I'm naughty. Oh, another place to whistle. Road crossing by the look of it. Chicago, I would seriously suggest staying in Chicago. I've lived in California. They're weird. Hello, Villian? It absolutely is a work of art. Sometimes when I get new bits and pieces that I'm spruiking, and I've been given them, and just for disclosure, I have been given this by Dovetail for the purposes of showing it off. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to find something positive to say, because I don't like being negative. But this thing, no, there's no struggle at all. Bloody awesome. And it just runs. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with the steep gradient with me driving. Yeah, I actually like that the different steam effects in the different seasons happen. That is really good. More trees. Because I do hang around steam engines myself, and yeah, they're a lot more steamy in cold weather. Cold, damp weather, there's so much. I can't find a good place to put the camera that isn't full of trees. There we go. I was wrong, I can find a place. Are you suggesting that, that Smokebox needs to do another train, Chicago? I'm sure he will. He's obviously got the creation bug. Loves doing a bit of creation. Oh, you chase steam engines. I've seen you do it. I've seen your post, Chicago, about chasing a steam engine. I like that you've got the oil can sitting in here keeping warm, because people who aren't involved in steam engines wouldn't know that this stuff is really thick and it almost won't pour until it's actually quite warm. If you enjoy the big boy, I reckon you'll like this. Smokebox says that he gets withdrawal symptoms if he stops smoking locos. I can understand that. It's kind of me in scenarios. I'm forever making new scenarios. I don't publish all that many of them. Ooh. I should really have slowed down a while ago. But it's okay, we're doing it now. It's alright, I washed off enough speed to get away with going through that curve without derailing my entire train, so that's okay. Passengers probably had a little bit of a rough ride, they all just fell out of their beds, but that's okay. And release. And I think I opened the cylinder cocks up again, but let's just come out here and make sure. I did, good. Ah, road. That should be enough to warm them back up again. And yes, I know I really should have put the reverser a little forward then, but this thing's so powerful it just copes with it. And we're going to be just about right for the 40 zone. Yeah, boiler pressure's pretty happy. Your fireman's doing an excellent job. Better than my last trip. My last trip we ended with 100 pounds on the clock. That wasn't a happy last bit of trip. Doing just this kind of speed I'm happy with. I might have to start putting the reverser up a little bit as we start climbing, but it seems to be happy enough at the moment. I've certainly got plenty of boiler pressure because it's throwing it out the top. What have we got in the chats? Chicago says someone saw the J-Class 1940s, 1950s. J-Class is quite a different machine here in Victoria. We have a gauge convertible locomotive, which is the J. And David's asked, he's wondering what the most difficult part of creating steam engines in TSC, especially complex beasts like this in the big boy. I'll leave that one for Smokebox to answer if he's still there. And Chicago says he's got ADHD and he's always negative because he never liked his parents or brother that never shuts up. Yeah. My youngest is ADHD as well, but he copes with life, mate, and so will you. It'll be all good. Let's just tweak the reverser a little. This is actually a milepost scenario that I copied and edited to put the Challenger on the front of it. It's normally a pair of diesels. You will cope, Chicago. I promise you that. You definitely will. And it's getting lighter now. Yay, I picked the right one this time. You can see the big proper rivets along here. I actually got the wrong run last time. That's okay. Now, some of the cool things you can do, if it's getting a bit cold, you can shut your doors. If it's going to do it. Come on. There we go. Next piece. And then we shut this one. If I can find it. There we go. So if you're getting a bit cold in winter time, you can shut your doors. Look at that. And you can even see it now that they're shut from the outside, which is really, really cool. It's alright, Chicago. No one saw that message anyway. YouTube's eating it. So, be calm, cool. Violence is never a solution, young fella. Oh, there's so much stuff you can open and close too, because you can close the roof vent, if I can get onto it. Alright, you going to do it or not? Maybe you're not. I think I just can't get onto it because the loco's moving around. And you can open and close the windows. And yes, you can do just these doors if you want. So you can have a little bit of a draft. So if you discovered closing the doors wasn't such a good idea after all, because now you're cooking. Generally speaking, David, my experience is with little tiny steam engines. Like they're prairie tank engines. And yeah, they cook you, even in winter. That fire is hot. wonder if I can get onto that from the outside. No. Oop, gratuitous bridge shot. Can I get around there in time? Yes. Barely. My train looks a bit empty. Don't think I've got any passengers. Yeah, little details like that, Vaudevillian. What he's talking about, the chain swinging is the whistle. That is quite impressive. What I also like is that it's actually not that hard to get onto it with the mouse, even though it's moving. So that's been thought about, which is good. Yeah, there's so many little details. Every time I climb in this thing, I find other stuff to look at. So if we come back to the middle of the cab view, the one that's right in the back, I'll get there eventually. There we go. Oh, I might want to open this door now. It's in the way. There's just so much going on here. And if you just sit here and watch for a little while, I know I should really be keeping more of an eye on my controls, but you'll actually see that the scripted fireman messes around with all these valves quite often. Sorry about that. And just because I've said he messes around with his valves quite often, he's not doing any at the moment, but that's alright. He will, sooner or later. Oh, you've been fanned by some rivet counters, have you, Smokebox? A Clinchfield livery for this thing. That'll be cool. I have got Clinchfield in TS. That would be fun. And Chicago says I'm getting subscribers faster than him. Purely luck, mate. And Chicago thinks Amtrak would hate Challenger leading the Empire Builder. I actually think they'd find it kind of cool, to be honest with you. I would imagine that they would insist on putting a diesel into the consist because it would always worry them that something was going to go wrong. And I've always wondered about the insistence on putting a diesel in the consist. Maybe they use it for the power, so they might want a bit of head air power. Oh, I haven't looked for any particular errors in it yet, Smokebox. I haven't gone comparing it to photos or anything. I'm still at the wow stage. It's a bit like when I'm beta testing stuff. You spend the first couple of days just going, wow, we've got this now. This is going to be awesome. People are going to love this. And after the first couple of days, then you start to see stuff and you start to find things. So it's important to get over the starry-eyed stage if you're betaing something. Look at the way all that motion moves. Are we in a spot where it's going to stay light for a little while? When we get out of these trees, when we get out of the trees and we've got enough reliable light on the motion gear, things like the reverser actually move, which is cool. So you can see it actually moving as I move. Which is really, really cool. And I shouldn't do that because I'll end up stalling the loco. But the number of animations on this thing is plenty. I was just about to look at the pressure gauge to see how much steam I was using, but I just saw it blow off, so it's whatever. Yeah, I think it's quite normal to spot errors after you release. Running lights are off at the moment. Whenever I make scenarios, I play them at least 10 times, and then I release it on Workshop, and then I'll play it again and go, oh no. That's okay. And sometimes I'll leave it and I'll see if anybody else spots it. We're getting steeper. And I'm going to be going just the right speed for that 35 zone up there, so that's good. I'd say I planned that, but, you know, I didn't. I think it's quite normal. These days I do solution architecture for software. I don't program anymore, but when I was programming stuff, you often find more bugs the first time someone else sees your creation. And you watch them using it and you go, oh, okay. Because there's one definite truth in developing software, and I see this as developing software for sure. The definite truth is that the people who use it will never use it in the way that you thought they would. You just have to watch this motion, don't you? The little lubricator. That lubricator is really nicely done. And there's all sorts of things you can turn on and off. You can get rid of bits and pieces that are on the loco. You can see the articulation there as we're going into the switch. And yes, I know Aussies and English call them points, but we're in America. Hello, Lima M Flight Simulator from Indonesia. Welcome. So if I cast my mind back to the 1970s, Salamat Pagi, I think, good morning, maybe? I can't see them, but I'm just assuming they're whistle boards. Well, they're whistle boards for the other way. There you go. Oops, we lost the sun. I went too far. I love that you can quill the whistle. And I'm amazed that we're going up a 0.6% gradient and this thing's still accelerating. And what's also interesting, Smokebox, is you've got so much going on that locomotive, but when it's displaying, the game's not having any little jitters or anything at all. Yet when those carriages go past, which are not the most detailed models in the world, I get these little stutters. Chicago says that there's a error on Clinchfield where you can't do one of the services. There is one that you can't complete at all. I think I'm in a tunnel. There is one you can't complete at all, but one of the journey ones, you can do it, and I put up a video of how to do it. You have to be a little bit naughty, but you can do it. And Smokebox says he used to develop, specify, design, code, test, manage the whole spectrum of embedded software in the space industry. That's cool. I've done embedded software in ticketing machines and telecommunications, but not for space. Space is just a little bit cooler than what I did. You can stick your head out the window and watch. Well, with a track IR you can anyway. Steam pressure's still happy. Not too much in the cylinders. That's what I'm looking at when I say there's not too much in the cylinders. They're pretty happy. The sun's starting to rise. And Vaudevillian says, definitely true about users. Always try to assume that any user is trying their best to destroy whatever I've created in many creative ways, even though they're not, and they still surprise me. That is so true. That is so absolutely true. Yeah, these days I work in the water industry. Doing solution architecture for all of our stuff. It's good fun. Software for fighter aircraft. Yeah, there's quite a switch between a fighter aircraft and a steam engine. I guess the fighter's a little bit lighter as well. And you don't just do any steam engine, you do massive ones. Although you've done quite a few others as well. Gonna keep it just going. I'm just going to let gravity do its thing to slow it down. I think maybe I'll get away with that. No, it's not going to slow down quick enough, is it? That's okay. A little bit of braking. I'm keeping the throttle on just to keep my cylinders warm. It should be enough. I'll release that now. That should be fine. There we go. Now I can start throttling up a little again. Did I actually release those completely? Oh yeah, I have. It's alright. The brakes work prototypically slowly. And there are many LODs, yes. And I appreciate the effort you go to make sure frame rates are good. So many people don't. I don't want to pick up too much more speed because we've got the slow section coming up. Can't miss the gratuitous bridge shot. I was wondering why I was starting to hear diesel noises. And I was thinking maybe one of these had head-end power, but no, it's here. Yeah, those old 1800s engines you made are amazing. It's a pair of modern diesel drivers thinking, what the? What just went past us? If you don't know what locomotives the people in the chat are chatting about, have a look at the Idaho and Omaha locomotives that Smokebox made, because they are incredible. So shiny. And it's quite right that working locomotives of that era were clean and shiny. because people took a huge amount of pride in their trains that early on. Very similar to the amount of pride that's taken on preserve railways today. On preserve railways, a little team of people will climb all over a locomotive and polish the thing before it gets out of the shed, hoping that the fireman, maybe me, doesn't make it blow off in the shed and cover it all with crap as it comes off the roof. Haven't managed that yet. Don't want to. The other time they can get really unintentionally dirty in the shed is when you're cleaning out the firebox at the end of the day and you're scooping out the last crap that you can't push down through the bars. And if you drop it into the barrow outside, instead of sliding it in gently, you make it snow. That's not a good sight for the engine cleaners. They tend to want to bite you after that. I still like the morass part through, you know. Whoever did these mountains did a nice job on them. They don't look, even though there's no trees or anything on them, they don't look bare and terrible. They just look good. Those ones up there, not so much. And Smokebox says that in the 1860s, crew were assigned a locomotive and it became their engine. They even adorned them with personalised decorations and kept them clean. Absolutely. It's a lot of effort for such a tiny road that probably hasn't ever had a car on it this year. This is one thing I like in TSC that TSW2 gives me the shits over a little bit. In TSC, you can put your camera over here and you don't hit the trees and the buildings and things. You just go through stuff. So you can do nice angles like this and get a nice view through the trees. Oops, road. That was naughty. I think I might have upset Chicago by deleting his comment. One to 2 years, that's amazing. One thing that I wonder about with the people who create content, is it enough of a winner that you can make a living off it? Or is it more of a pleasure business? Because I know with my photography, I do not make enough money to make a living out of it, not by a long shot. So I have a real job, but still love doing it. It's enough to keep them warm. I almost forgot that I'm supposed to stop here. But not quite yet. Brake to touch early. Love the clanking, the motion. Yeah, I had a faint suspicion it probably wasn't the kind of business that would make you rich. Yeah, that's really cool. True, working from home and doing what you want and having fun with it. That's very important for quality of life. I always imagine some rail fans standing up on a footbridge like that, getting themselves cooked because they don't understand smoke's really hot. I watched a drone fly over one of our locos once and it just disappeared. Yeah, I baited for DTG and TSNZ, or NZTS. Never can remember which way around that is. Reminds me I've got some stuff I promised to have a go at, which I had not done yet. I'm impressed what you make this, what is essentially a 20-year-old game engine, managed to do. Maybe I should close the cylinder cock so I don't steam up these passengers. It's like, nah, they chose to stand there. It's all good. Let's give them more steam. There you go. Just steam cleaning the passengers and the platform. It's funny that the marker has me stopping with the locomotive in the platform. Whoops, wrong way. That should do. Will it do? No. Oh, gonna have to move. Actually, let's not go 75. Whoop. That didn't go so well. Sand. Sand. It's that one, isn't it? No, that one. Now I've got to make it move that tiny little bit just so I can have this station. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. There we go. Done. Now I should be able to load passengers. No, I can't. Okay then. Well, we stopped in the station. We all saw me do it. It's all good. Now I just got to get going again. Yeah. Hopefully the cock's closed. Which way are the cylinder cocks? Are they open or closed? Come on. Let's just bring this back a bit because I'm probably putting a little bit too much into it. Come on, you can do it. You did it before. Do it again. There we go. So even though the game doesn't think I've stopped at this station, whatever. Tiny bit more. Come on. If all else fails, I'll just click the driver's seat and let him take over. Whee! Sparks! There we go. Now, when the company complains and says you didn't stop at that station, well, I did. Because the scenario doesn't like this train. That's kind of effortless. It is just pulling up a 0.5% gradient, accelerating away, putting diesels to shame. Yes, whatever. Did I accidentally... Oh, I did. I closed the smoke hood. That one? That's better. Now it'll steam a bit better. Yeah, I started with MSTS as well. .8% gradient and it's like it's not there. Still accelerating. I suppose that's a good point, Smokebox. You don't really want to blow the roof off that thing, do you? See what else we can poke in here. I know there's more switches up there somewhere. I think that one's on. Very hard to do this. Now we should have running lights on. Maybe? Yeah, I think are they glowing? It's hard to tell. It's kind of daytime, so a bit hard to tell. Now that it's getting lighter. And steeper. Set up there as well. Can't quite get onto that one. Right, maybe I can get to it from here. That's the backup light. And that'll be on driver's side. I assume that's that little light down there. Oop, bridge shot. Nearly missed the bridge shot. Yeah, American light switches, up is on. Australian light switches, down is on. How did we get that so different? Should do a little survey around the world, because Billion, you're from the UK. What are your light switches, up or down for on? Oop, and I'm going fast again. I'm naughty. Actually, I don't really have to slow down here because I'm not going through the diverging points anyway. So even though I'm supposed to go slower, it doesn't really matter. But we'll let it slow down because we're nice. Yes, you did, Chicago. Be calm, mate. Don't say anything that you will regret. The one advice I'd give you with your family members is remember that anything you say to them could be the last thing that you ever say to them, either because something happens to them or something happens to you. So if you treat every conversation that way, you and they will be better off. Me? Screenshot Central? What? Ooh, we're getting into the steep bit now. And yes, I know I'm speeding, but that won't last long. Now we'll see how I go on Steam usage. Now I expect at the moment I'm probably getting quite horrible Steam usage. Actually, that's not bad. It's a little bit under what we're making. Fireman's doing well. Oh, if anybody's wondering, the automatic fireman keeps the fire mass usually around 4,200, so it's a little bit low there. So if you're trying to fire it yourself, I'd be aiming for that mark. I want to get used to driving it properly before I try and fire it. And just running through chat, mostly people chatting with each other, which is all good. You're in Scotland, Smokebox. Still coping with the gradient pretty well. Starting to slow down, but coping quite well. Actually starting to speed up again. That's cool. Yeah, I have quite a good relationship with my wife's parents, less so with my mum. She's an interesting individual. My back pressure is probably horrific. Well, actually, no, surprisingly, it's not bad. I was kind of deliberately not looking. That's not bad. That's quite good. I'm kind of surprised at that. Well, we better put the hood on. So, taking Smokebox's advice, I've closed the hood up here, which must put an awful lot of smoke into the cab, I would imagine, when you do that. Vaudevillian, I've wanted to go to Cass for a long time. I almost got there in 2019, but I just, because I was in New York, but I just ran out of time. I just couldn't afford the roughly 3 days it would have taken me to get to Cass. I'm going to leave that hood on because I've got another one. Yeah, I've used to live in the US, so we were visiting every year, but of course, pandemic. And at the moment, airfares are just ridiculous. There's just not a chance that we can justify the cost of it versus all the other fun things that are going on at the moment. Everybody's economies are getting a little bit excited. Actually, Smokebox, when you close the hood, does it actually make a difference to the amount of draft it produces? Does your fireman react and turn the blower up a bit? Ah, Perth. We have Perth in Australia as well. It's not like Scottish Perth, though. It's dry and hot. Get rid of our hood again. I shouldn't say this because something bad will happen, but I'm amazed at how well this is climbing this gradient. This is grouse. It's just stomping away. I was almost tempted to put a double header on it, and then I thought, no, it's 2 steam engines by itself. Probably don't need to. And David Park says, Train Simulator driver never makes mistakes. No, never. No, that never happens. Yeah, boiler pressure's spot on because your scripted fireman's really good at the job. Certainly not my doing. I think a long-distance Amtrak trip would be a grand idea, Chicago. I encourage you to travel. You're probably a little on the young side for solo travelling, but when you get old enough, solo travelling is probably one of the best things you can do in your life. You learn so much more about everything around you and yourself. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame we didn't make Cass. I've been to not every, but probably about 75, maybe 80% of the other steam railways in the US. In 2018, the last big one I visited was one of the last ones that I hadn't ridden on, and that was the Yosemite Sugar Pine. And I bought myself a cab pass for that one, and chatting with the crew, and talking to them and asking them lots of questions about how it ran, and they gave me a run, which was good. Probably shouldn't say that because they're probably not meant to. That's okay. It's just between me and the internet. If the big boy's not climbing well, Chicago, have a look at how you're driving it. Have a look at where you've got your reverser, how much steam you're using. So with this one, the scripted fireman's doing an excellent job of keeping up with the amount of steam I'm using. So if you look, if you look at this HUD, you want to try and keep this number, the steam usage rate, below the steam generation rate. So at the moment, the fireman's doing an awesome job of making steam, but I am using a fair bit, but I'm not quite using what he's making. So we're still keeping up. If you start using significantly more steam than is being generated, you'll be in trouble really fast. There's no going back from that one. Most locomotives will run when they're under pressure. I don't know about this one, but most locomotives, so the ones I'm used to, we're redlining at 200. But our locomotive will keep running at 100. It can keep moving forwards, but under 150, it can't run the brake compressor anymore. So you've got to try and keep it above 150 at least. And our little engines have a 9 square foot firebox with what is essentially a mainline sized boiler. So they're actually really hard to fire. And I quite happily say I'm not good at it, but I'm learning. I was actually meant to be firing today, but I had a very minor surgery on my arm on Wednesday, so I'm doing this instead. Which is a bummer, because even though this is a lot of fun, real ones are a lot more fun. Yeah, 100 square feet's pretty good. And it's a automatic stoker. Being the trainee fireman in our locos, I'm described as the automatic stoker. I find firing our big Garrett is very easy. It's got a much bigger firebox, and it doesn't really matter how badly you get it wrong, it still makes so much more steam than we need. But the little ones, no. Because even though our engines are 2'6" and they look tiny, they actually very powerful little machines. I'm just going to leave that hood closed for the moment. Yosemite is absolutely beautiful, Vaudevillian. What I would make sure you do if you're visiting Yosemite, don't do what the people who try and do it on a day trip do. Go and camp there, or if you can afford it, stay in the hotel, but, you know, it's pretty expensive. There are some backpacker-type shelters in the park as well, which are relatively affordable. Camping there is very affordable. I wouldn't do it in a tent because there's bears, but plenty of people do. If you do it in a tent, make sure you keep all your food in the steel boxes that they provide for you. Oh, it'll be fine, Vaudevillian. I just had a little lump growing in my arm that I wanted to get rid of because I started banging it on things, and it was, whenever I hit it on something, it would hurt a lot. So it was a very minor thing to get rid of it. Yeah, they're coming out into the sun. Go back in and pop that hood on. Hey, now that we're actually in the light, I can show you the reverser. I won't move it much, but that's the reverser is connected to this rod. Light's gone. All right, when the sunlight comes back, I'll finish this. And Smokebox can laugh at me if I get it wrong. Yeah, definitely stay in Yosemite. Last time I was there, I stayed there for 4 days, which wasn't nearly enough. And I did 4 of the big trails hiking. I climbed up to Nevada and I can't remember the name of the other waterfall, but I climbed right up to the top. Climbed up the hard trail, came back down the easy trail. Probably should have done that the other way around, just saying, but you know, it was fun. Did the bus trip up to the other side of the valley and walked back down. That was amazing. Come on, light. Let's have some light. Oh, we've got some coming up, that looks of it. So I'll be able to show you what I was talking about in a tick. Alright, so the reverse is, that handle in the cab is connected to this rod. So when you move it, it causes this steam piston to push on the fulcrum, which changes what's happening with your gearing here and changes what's happening with the valves and the cylinders, which is pretty clever. What I don't see is how it connects to the other one. Actually, there's a rod in there, isn't there? That's probably how it's connected to the other one. How are we doing in here? Got even less cylinder back pressure. Working hard. Oh, it's air driven. Cool. Maybe I should open that hood. What do you reckon? And we are starting to slow down. That's because I moved the reverser and took it out of the 30s, because I'm a dummy. Yeah, I imagine it would have to be connected, because it is essentially 2 separate steam engines, and you have to control both of them. Yeah, I imagine you'd need to be able to run it on steam, because when you first wake the locomotive up while it's really cold, you might need to move the reverser and move the loco around a little bit before you've got the compressor going. Compressors are cantankerous things. A locomotive on flat ground will move itself on very little steam pressure at all. But compressors like a lot. Yeah, we've got 2 Garrett locomotives that are articulated, and getting steam into articulation is a complex thing. I've had a look at the driving units when they're pulled apart. It's quite impressive how it's done, that you can put steam in under the kind of pressures that these things operate under through articulated joints, and it doesn't just blow apart. Your fireman's keeping it just on the point where it blows off. We're about to get steeper, so we'll see how it goes. Because I can't give it any more throttle. There's none left. Yeah, the unions on the Garretts are balls sitting in bowls, and they have clamps over the top of them. Good, it's green. I was worried for a moment. I saw the red glow and thought, uh-oh. Yeah, I can imagine. You can build a real one. There's a 15-inch railway in Utah where one of the members has built a big boy. And even on 15-inch track, it's still massive. Doing okay with the gradient, still maintaining the speed, even accelerating slightly. And train's happy. We climb through our mountains. Yeah, I'm amazed at the things that people build in their home workshops. It's just staggering. If I remember correctly, I don't know the exact value, but I think that locomotive cost something in the vicinity of $25,000 and it took him about like 8 or 9 years to make it, something like that. I've often entertained the idea of making one, but my machining skills aren't good enough. It's possibly a changing world, though, now that you can 3D print epoxy metal components. So a lot of the stuff that you would have to machine, you could just 3D print now. Yeah, I don't think it would sell for 25,000. I think it would be a lot more than that. Yes, quite possibly. I did have a share in a traction engine once. It was a full-size one. I had a quarter ownership of it. It's still alive. It lives up in Echuca. Probably runs more often now than when I had ownership. Still happy. Boiler's still excellent. Doing a great job, Invisible Fireman. Keep it up. That's one thing I'd like to see in TSClassic. I can only go... Oh, there we go. I can go upwards again. Every now and again, the train game gets a little confused at my weird trackball that I use instead of a mouse. One thing I've wondered in TSC, because you have the characters when you look in from outside. Hello, passenger. Ooh, serial killer guy. But you get characters when in this view, but in this view there's no fireman. It's one of the things I'd like to see in TSC. Similarly, if I'm standing in this view, the one that's in the middle of the back of the cab when I get there, because there's 1,000 different views, that one, it'd be really cool if there was a crew on either side, but I suspect that's a TSC limitation. There we go. We've got a gauge glass check happening at the moment. Good to see. You have to do that periodically and make sure that your gauge glasses are reading true. And you can also, you can check whether you're getting steam and water out of these as a secondary check for your water level. Oh, close. I think that one's still open. It is. And I like the way you've got the water moving. How are we going for speed? We're still doing fine. Still accelerating, in fact. Stomping away. Like a pair of massive elephants pulling a train. Yeah, that's cool. I'd like it if all TSC locomotives had a crew. And preferably one that doesn't go into hiding, because in TSW they go into hiding. Yeah, it's interesting. Our little boilers, I shouldn't say little boilers, they're not that little. The gauge classes on ours, we don't get that much surging backwards and forwards in the boiler. So you don't get that much up and down movement. You get plenty based on your gradient, where you are on the line, because our line, steepest gradient's 1 in 30. Which is 3% if you're looking at this thing. Kind of interesting, because I was always worried about firing it up the gradients, but up the gradients isn't really my issue. It's going down the other side without blowing off is the issue. And then becoming so paranoid about blowing off, I let the fire die too much. So when you want to go up the other side, you haven't got enough left. Life. Still very much learning the craft. Non-stop, which is good, because I don't know if I'd want to start on a 1.2% gradient, just saying. Actually, while I've got your Smokebox, I need to ask one question. Am I imagining it that the colour of the smoke changes and that sometimes it's dark and sometimes it's light? Or is it really doing that? Because if it's really doing that, that's cool. Oh, indeed. You don't want to uncover the crown sheet. The crown sheet, for people who are wondering, it's the steel sheet at the top of the firebox. Or a copper sheet if you've got an old enough steam engine. And it needs to have water on it at all times, because the firebox is actually hot enough to deform and or melt that sheet without the water. That's one thing they like to hammer us into us in fireman training. Running out of steam is only embarrassing. Running out of water will kill you. So I'm not imagining the colour of the smoke. Excellent. I really like that. Because if you're hand firing a loco, granted this one's mechanically stoked, but if you're hand firing one, it is quite satisfying when you're hunting for a hole on the grate and you finally find the hole and fill it and you get that nice dark smoke. Yeah, I think the smoke's really cool. You can tell when the stoker's piling more in, that's for sure. finally got some sunlight. And you can finally tell that I picked the dirty one. And I even got the right one this time, I think. Oh, that's cool. Chicago asks, can you repair a steam locomotive without melting the boiler? Depends what you're trying to do. You may have to cut a hole in the boiler if part of the plate's getting too thin. It's fairly common to cut the tube plates out at the firebox and the smokebox end, because the ash and cinders mixed with water are horribly acidic. And just eat away at the metal. So it's not uncommon at all to cut some or all of your tube plate out during an overhaul. You need shade drawings. Stay right there. Damn it, I can't find the book in the bookshelf, but there actually is a book on shays that's got a complete set of drawings in the book. I've just got too many bloody railway books in my bookshelf. There's hundreds of them. I should sort them out one day. Still maintaining a pretty good speed. Pretty happy with that. Plenty of work going on. A 3-truck shay would be very, very nice. I think that would go really nicely. Not all the parts. It's got GAs, general arrangement drawings. So it wouldn't have the full detail set. I'm trying to think where you'd get them from. I know there's a shay kit from an American manufacturer that's got all the machining instructions for building your own. You could potentially use one of those, because that one's got the instructions for everything. It might work. I wonder if they'd just give you a set, because normally they sell those sets of planes. So I was just thinking a 3-truck shay or a Climax or a Heisler on the Colorado route. Ooh, that'd be nice. Shays are interesting beasts, though. You need to be an aficionado to like logging locomotives, because they don't go very fast. And if you were trying to do, say, a end-to-end run on Clear Creek, it would probably take about 4 hours. So you need a bit of dedication to use a shay. We've got a Climax on our railway, and the thing's so slow and it burns so much timber when it's out, because it's a timber-fired one, not a coal-fired one like the rest of our stuff, that no one really likes firing it, because it's such hard work, because you'll burn about 1,000 old sleepers in it during the day. And it's so slow it holds up the rest of the railway, so the railway don't like it being out either. We're picking up some speed now, and we're going to start going downhill soon. And then I'll get the answer to my question about whether I can use the reverser to slow it down or not. $3,000 drawings for the Challenger. Yeah, it's a fair set. Oh, do you mean about recovering a wreck, Chicago? Normally after a steam locomotive wrecks, the boiler and the frame are so rigid on a steam locomotive that normally not much happens to them when they wreck. Normally. But they have to be inspected very carefully because as a pressure vessel, you've got to be very careful with them. You don't just pick them up, put them on the rails, dust them off and run them again. Amazingly enough, I'm slowing down going down the gradient because all my trains should be over the top by now. Yeah, it is. Oh, now I'm starting to speed up. Yeah, we'll see how we go. Don't want to use too much. Yeah, it works very effectively, even with a small amount of steam, so we probably don't need to do it too much. Just stay in mid-gear for the moment. You know, there's not really anything that is beyond repair, Chicago, if you want to repair it. What happens with railways is that money is involved. So if you've got a $5 million locomotive and it wrecks, and it'll cost you $2 million to repair it and $5 million to buy a new one, you're going to repair it. You'll spend the $2 million. But if it's going to cost you $5 million to repair it, you won't. You'll scrap it and you'll recover whatever money you get out of scrapping it, and you'll buy a new locomotive. Yeah, I imagine it would slow you down if you're putting a bit too much in there. Not much going on at this level. It's doing a job. It's certainly slowed down my rate of increase of speed. Let's try 10. The other thing you got to watch is your cylinders don't get too cold and you blow them up. Where are we route-wise? Got a while to go yet. She's a long old run. Long bloody way. But a lot of that will be loping along and come down out of the hills. I can stay on the move. Excellent. Steam locomotives are probably a different question too, Chicago, because if a steam locomotive on a heritage railway wrecks, Finance, it sounds funny to say finance is not a problem, but it's often not, because you can get heritage grants from government, you can get grants from arts foundations and industrial and mechanical foundations. There's a lot of money to be had if you've got someone clever enough to find it and get it. And in a commercial railway, where there's no business case to recover and repair the locomotive will just disappear, it's gone. But on a heritage sense, if you want to save an old heritage machine, you're going to spend an awful lot more than it's worth recovering it, even if you're just restoring one. I know our little railways locomotives, we have A, B, C and D exams. In an A exam, they look at it and go, yep, it's a train. And they'll make sure that all of the stuff that's not that commonly lubricated gets lubricated, and it's hand checked if anything's making excess movement or wear. And then we'll have B exams where they do a lot more. They'll be looking at the tubes, they'll be looking in the firebox, they'll be probably rebuilding the arch in the firebox. Potentially they might look at re-cementing in the bottom of the smokebox, and they'll give it a bit more of a detailed check. And then we have a C exam where they'll take apart all of the steam gear that's in the cab and some of the rest of it, and give it a really detailed going over, and the whole loco gets a really good look. And then we have Ds where they take them apart, and it's basically turned into a pile of parts, and everything's measured and checked. They may replace parts, they might machine parts to change the fit, they might put in different bushings, and then they put it all back together again, and it's essentially a new locomotive. I don't actually know who Ed Deckens is, Smokebox. But at the moment we're going uphill, so I don't really need to be in reverse, because that's silly. Because I wasn't watching. Time to work hard again. I forgot that it goes uphill again. I wasn't watching enough. Always like the reflections in TSC. I wonder if it's close enough to get a reflection of the train. Oh, yeah, just. Quick screenshot. Never happened. Ah. Oh, actually, yeah, I've seen that guy on YouTube. Yeah, now I do know who you mean. Being thrown out of a cab this big would be quite serious too. It's a long way down. About to start going downhill again. Just coming up on a crest now. But I'll let it speed up because we're allowed to. Have you ever met the people that run those locos, Smokebox? Do they know about your work? Ah, another water shot. Can we get a reflection? I think we will. This be a good screenshot, this one. Oops, wrong key. I did find the keys for changing the numbers, but I haven't really bothered with them. I wonder if they'd put you on the locomotives if you went over to visit Smokebox. That's holding. And not too horrible with the cocks open. They like doing publishing videos about their work. I wonder if they'd do a combination thing where they showcase the combination of the magic and simulation and go say, here's the real locomotive, you can come and ride it, but of course you have to be here. But if you can't be here, you can still ride it because there's this. That would be pretty cool. Your train doesn't move even with Sanders. What kind of track conditions have you got, Chicago? And what locomotive and what train? How long? How heavy? And what game? Yeah, a lot of brands do control those things pretty heavily these days, don't they? They all want to control their branding. Make sure it's not used poorly. So I imagine the people involved with the locomotive are probably quite fascinated with what you do and probably very appreciative. But they could probably only say it privately. Yeah, that's really cool, Smokebox. Yeah, hopefully they'll be cool about it. I mean, they let DTG run with theirs, so hopefully that would be good. Slowed down a little much, a little early, but that's okay, the brakes will release. Did I still need to bail it off? Oh, chat's running 20 seconds behind the video. Oh, you mean Chicago's break? If you've got any questions about that locomotive, Chicago, this is the perfect time to ask them. the cylinders warm up again. So I've got the cocks open. Realistically, I don't know how much heat they'd lose in that time because they're such big castings, but better safe than sorry. Yep, all good. Yeah, it's something a lot of people don't get about brakes is, yeah, when you release the brakes in a locomotive, it could be as much as a few minutes before they release in the back. And the same when you apply them. They start applying up front, but it could be quite a long time that before they apply in the back. This looks like it's leveling out. Could I be bothered slowing down? Yeah, probably. Just give it a little touch and then release. It should be enough. Yeah, I read in the manual that there's scripting about monitoring the condensation, and I thought, oh, better be careful then, so I don't blow the end of my cylinders off. I don't know if you saw that brake, Chicago, but I applied the brakes for, what, 20 seconds? And it's still actually slowing down at the moment, even though the brakes have been off for quite a while. So it takes a while for the braking system in the train to recover and fully release everywhere. And that is quite realistic. I guess that's one of the biggest barriers to entry to new people coming into trains, is they can make them move okay, but they don't understand about making them stop. That would be bad, Smokebox. And the other challenge with using your brakes too much without doing a full charge and release is running out of air. There's a poorly configured bridge that the light goes through. Welcome to Glacier Park, ladies and gentlemen. A friend of mine went to Glacier National Park last year. I quite enjoyed her photos. It's one novel thing about American national parks is you can go to nearly all the places from a car. Australian national parks, no, you could be walking for days to get to good spots. Literally days. Now what I should do, since I'm in here, is do an equalising. That should do. Is that going to be enough? No, more. Yes, I know. Brake pipe over reduction. Relax. I'm doing it deliberately. That's okay. Oh, well, it was a good run. Now, what I'll try and do now, what I was trying to do there was an equalising brake application. And Smokebox says running out of air is one of the things that you have to patch soon. Made a small mistake in the script and the auxiliary reservoirs don't deplete properly at the moment. That's okay. What I want to do is, let's just grab any old route. Let's grab its home route, actually. Wasatch grade, why not? And I'm going to create a new scenario. And I'm going to do it at Evanston because it's flat. And I'm going to be really imaginative because all I want to do is what I was doing at the start when I tried to show the different versions of the locomotives. And the game kept crashing because it didn't like having them all put out. All right, because I'm not actually going to make a scenario that we're going to run. Where's a good spot? Here's a good spot. Because what I want to do is... Now, this is the original Challenger. So this is the original one that comes with this route. And you can see it's okay. But it's not amazing. And then if we put in... Oops, wrong one. Smokebox and that. And then we can put on... Let's put it on that track. So this is the high definition clean one. And you can see there's quite a lot of difference between this version and this version. So this is not the Smokebox one. This is the original one that comes with the route. And one's like a cartoon version of the Smokebox one, I guess. And then there's the dirty one, which is the one we were running. Let's just put that there. So it's just a bit grubbier than the nice, clean, shiny one. And then if we grab the standard definition ones, we'll just put those on a bit of an offset. And we'll go and put the dirty one on as well. SD dirty. And see if we can spot the differences in here. So I know you can see here that the rivets aren't three-dimensional, which is what I missed on that first one I ran. Because on this one, if we come in deep enough, maybe I shouldn't have put them so close together. You can see, oops, they're in the firebox. Oh, it's so hot. I know, I'm an idiot. It's hard to get in there, but you can see that there's more rivets around here. So instead of just black spots, I shouldn't have put them so close together. See down here, there's just black spots. So there are a few differences. You also get there's the Rio Grande, which is that one. Not that you can tell much with this one, because I guess it's more in the tender, isn't it? That's okay. And there's the silver trim one. Get away. You can see the differences in that one. It's mostly the trim work here. It's got the silver paint on it, which is pretty cool to have all those different versions. And this comparison from this one, which when it came out was actually a really good locomotive. People liked this. And today, people don't like it. Why? This. This sort of shows what is possible when you really want to do it. Ah, front different on the Rio Grande. Let's go look. So that one was the Rio Grande. See what I should do? Let's get rid of that one. Let's grab this one. Oops, go on, go away. Let's grab this one and put them up here. Down, 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 down. It's a Rio Grande on the right, Union Pacific on the left. There's a few differences you can see here and there. It's interesting how much differences individual railway companies actually got the loco manufacturers to put in. Now, I wonder if this scenario would actually run. Because when I built it, the first one, it ran fine. And I could even drive the locos around. Even without tenders, I could drive the locos around. But no, it just didn't want to run when we started the game. But that's okay. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to show this morning. Tomorrow morning, I will be back with the usual stream, and I'm running the long promised for Chicago Metra. And I have to say, don't be too surprised if I sneak a Challenger in there somewhere. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll put one in, maybe I won't. And yeah, that'll be it for today. And tomorrow will be a longer stream. So this is just run over a couple of hours, and I've got some stuff to do that I've promised to do this morning, so I will. And tomorrow morning we'll run a few things with Metra and maybe sneak some other stuff in there somewhere along the line. So thank you very much for watching, folks. Awesome to have Smokebox in the chat. I really appreciate that, because there's a lot of learning to do with these locomotives. They are very complex. But don't feel put off about complexity if you're watching this either behind the scenes. I can see there's 64 people watching behind the time and 5 watching live. People watching behind the time, if you notice there's a little thing that says live with a grey dot. If you press that, it'll turn into a red dot and you'll catch up and you'll be able to join in the chat. But if you don't want to do that, that's also fine. So back tomorrow morning, be lots of fun. As I was saying, I just got sidetracked, sorry. While there is a lot to learn with these locomotives, don't get put off by them. Go for it, because they are drivable very easily. You don't have to take a complex approach to it. And if you ever get a little bit lost when you're driving it, all you have to do is click on the driver's seat. Let me just take you in there if I can get in. I think it'll let me in even with the doors shut. Yep. All you have to do, if you just click on the driver's seat in the cab when it's running, it takes over and it'll run by itself. So if you're ever confused, you're ever getting a little bit stuck, maybe you've got onto a gradient and you can't get up the hill or whatever, just click on the automatic driver and let it take over. Yep. And as Smokebox says, they can run on the simple controls. So that's kind of like model railway controls, I guess. So if that's your thing, if that's how you like playing a game, then by all means do that. So don't be put off by the fact that these can be a really complex locomotive, because they don't have to be a really complex locomotive. And they're so awesome to look at, so different to the other things that are in the game. Really good to have them, and yeah, really enjoyable just because you can watch it. I know I kind of geek out a little bit, but just things like being able to watch the bits and pieces move when you move the reverser, or the cutoff as some people call it, or the Johnson bar as other people call it. Yeah, it's just awesome. So thanks heaps for watching, folks. Glad you enjoyed it. And again, thanks for Smokebox being here and all of the usual faces that are in the chat. Great to have you around as always. So thanks, folks. See you tomorrow morning if you're coming along for Metra and maybe a little bit of spice. Alrighty, see ya. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I always like to get your feedback in the form of likes and comments because they help me understand what you want. Give the channel a subscribe and click on the tinkly things so you don't miss out on any new stuff. And thanks for your ongoing support. And please, be safe out there.